In episode 4, both Beck and Joe are reeling from the 8 seconds of fun they just had, and it's a very awkward situation because neither of them really know what to say to each other. But it's broken up when Beck gets a text message from some guy named the Captain. She rushes into the bathroom so she doesn't have to answer it in front of Joe. Of course, Joe has her other phone so he can see what she's saying. And the Captain asks her if she's ready for this weekend, but she really doesn't want to go hang out with him this weekend. Then he asks her if she has the outfit, to which she says, "No, I have no money," and he sends her $500. The conversation ends when the Captain says, "I love you," and even though Beck really doesn't want to say it, she says, just tell him what he wants to hear and says, "Love you" back. And when she texts "love you," it really upsets Joe. I mean, he's pretty embarrassed about his performance, and then 30 seconds later, she's telling another guy that she loves him. So he actually gets up and leaves the apartment. The next day in her group chat with her friend, she's telling them about how it was 8 seconds and not very satisfying. And some of them are asking for dick pics, but she just keeps sending them emojis until finally one of the friends says, "Hey, is this even worth it?" And she thinks about it and says, "Yeah, it's worth it. I'll give him one more shot." And while Joe is upset that he's getting ridiculed and mocked with emojis, he is relieved to see that she is willing to give him one more chance. But she really isn't worried about Joe at the moment because she has to get that outfit for the Captain and head to the motel that they booked. And part of the outfit is some boots that Peaches has, who at the moment is dealing with a bedbug infestation that the exterminator can't even find. But she lies to Peaches about what she's doing that weekend, saying she's going to a writing seminar. And when Peaches questions her about why she needs these boots, she says, "What, it's an either-or situation? You can either be sexy or be a writer?" But Beck feels pretty shitty about lying to her friend. So she gets the boots and heads off to the motel room, and of course Joe is checked into the room right next door. And Joe is pretty surprised because when the Captain shows up, he is this middle-aged guy that's dressed like he's coming out of the 1800s. At first, he's really pissed off, but then it makes sense when Beck addresses him as Dad. And that outfit was for a Dickens festival in the town. So Joe is following her around this Charles Dickens festival, watching her interactions with her father. And just from her body language, you can tell that she does not want to be there with him. And this whole time, she's just thinking about how he abandoned her and her brothers and her sister and her mom. And to make matters worse, now she has to hang out with his new family. And she can't stand his new wife, who is extremely pretentious, extremely judgmental, and her teenage daughter is exactly like her. But just to be sure, Joe hops on social media and confirms that it is her dad, and while he used to be a drug addict, he certainly did not die, and through the help of a church's NA group, he has sobered up, but also met his new wife, who has a very successful blog, where she uses him as material quite a bit. So he's got this whole new perfect family, to which he wants Beck to be a part of, but it's really hard when she doesn't get along with them, especially the teenage daughter and the mom. And the teenage daughter doesn't really do anything to endear herself to Beck when she tells Beck that she was invited this weekend to get cut off financially from her dad. And also to let Beck know that Dad's new wife is pregnant with their first child. And when Beck hears this, she immediately needs alcohol in the worst way. So while Beck tries to drown her sorrows, her best friend Peaches heads to the bookstore looking for Joe, but he's currently stalking Beck, and the only person there is Ethan. And she asks Ethan if they happen to have that Wizard of Oz book that's missing from her house. And he says, "Yeah, that's a very rare book, and we keep those downstairs, but unfortunately, I currently do not have the key for downstairs." So while he can't help her out with her book, he does tell her where Joe is. And since that just so happens to be in the same place as Beck, she doesn't find it as a coincidence and ends up calling Beck, asking, "Hey, are you with Joe?" But she says, "No, I told you I'm at a writing conference." And she once again feels terrible about lying to Peaches. At the same time, Ethan is calling Joe saying, "Hey, there was this girl in here who is looking for a rare Wizard of Oz book." And immediately Joe knows it's Peaches. And Ethan lets him know, "I hope it's okay, but I let her know where you are." So now Joe is under the assumption that Beck also knows that he is there. And he's got two choices. He can either run or stay. And he decides to stay and quote unquote bump into her and play it off like, "What are you doing here?" And at first that's exactly what he does. And it makes sense because he works in a bookstore. It's a Charles Dickens festival. They're selling old books there. But finally he comes clean and says, "I gotta be honest with you, I'm lying. I knew you were here. You gave it away with an Instagram post. I just didn't like how we left things last night. And truthfully, I thought we were in a race. I won, right? 8 seconds?" And for the time being, it cheers up Beck. They end up bumping into Beck's dad and his new family, and they invite Joe to dinner with them that night. But before they head to dinner, Beck wants to come clean with Joe about who her dad is. She says, "When I was younger, I went downstairs to play video games, and I found my dad almost dead with a needle in his arm. And luckily, he didn't die. But later on, he relapsed and he disappeared. And when he did, I vowed that he was out of my life forever. But he got clean, and when I was at Brown, he got back in touch with me and wanted to help me out with my finances. So I decided to be the doting daughter and go to lunch with him and go to stupid things like this Charles Dickens festival. But now he's got this perfect family and I can't stand them." And Joe is very comforting about this and very understanding, and the two head off to dinner. And at first it seems like it's going okay until Beck brings up a sailing trip that their dad is very uncomfortable with and either remembers it and is embarrassed or doesn't remember it because he was under the influence. And when his new wife steps in and says he clearly doesn't remember remember, Beck snaps back that he can speak for himself and that she shouldn't treat him like a child. To which his wife replies, that's pretty rich coming from you since you treat him like an ATM. This sparks a huge fight where Beck storms out of the place after screaming at her that she didn't save him. She didn't rip him out from the darkness. In fact, he was clean and sober when the two met. And it was actually Beck and not her that was with him in the darkness. So after the blow up, Joe goes out and finds her at a gazebo and is trying to comfort her, saying maybe she can use this in her writing. And Beck lashes out at Joe saying, who the hell are you to tell me I have daddy issues? You know what? Get out of here. Just go away. And shortly after that, Beck's dad joins her and he tries to pay for the hotel room, which he doesn't take initially, but ends up taking the money. And Beck says, I just want the old dad that I had. I want the old you. I don't want this new you with the new family. But that's pretty hard because this is who he is now. He invites her to spend Christmas with them, but she says, yeah, I'll have to check my schedule. That night, she's tossing and turning and cannot sleep, and that's when she finally decides to write. And she writes this poem called The Ladle. And truthfully, I have no idea if it sucks or not because I'm not a poetry guy. But somebody who did like it is Blythe, who texts her the next day and says, I've read it twice, it gave me chills. And this boosts Beck's confidence a lot. She also gets a text, though, from Peaches saying that they found a bed bug. Oh my god, you have to come over here and help me pack. By the way, can you stop by and pick up Xanax? But unlike before, Beck doesn't drop everything to go be with Peaches. She actually heads over to Joe's apartment. And when he answers the door, she says, I hear girls with daddy issues are great in bed. Which, I gotta be honest, I think is the stupidest thing to say to a guy that you want to last more than 8 seconds. Either way, though, the two start making out, but Joe begins to panic because littered throughout his apartment are her items. Her panties are over here, her top is over there, a book is over here, and her phone is on his bed. So he starts Circus Soleil'ing this thing and starts moving the items without her even knowing as the two make out. The two finally end up on the bed and Joe rocks her world. The next day when they wake up, the two have a conversation and she apologizes to Joe for how she acted, but Joe plays it off like, no, you were in the right, it's fine. But she says, no, I wasn't. She brings up that Joe is different from every other guy that she's dated in the best way possible. She then excuses herself to go to the bathroom and Joe is curious if he's getting raided again. So he fishes out her phone from behind the bed and sure enough, he is getting raided and he is getting praised for his stroke skills. One person, however, who is not impressed with Joe is Peaches, who just texts back, enjoy it while it lasts. So in an attempt to get her off his back, Joe sneaks into her apartment and returns the Wizard of Oz book that he stole. Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.